What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Friday afternoon here. It is absolutely beautiful outside. Official weather report is that it's 80 degrees. Sun is shining. Don't worry, we got a Ford over there idling its life away, but it is absolutely beautiful outside. Yesterday we were driving around the first gen. It was awesome. This is officially my new favorite, man. This is just, you just cannot beat it. But we did actually have a little bit of a problem on the road yesterday. The fuel shutoff wires, which are right here. Let me see if I can get you down in there. This blue one right here. This one must have been coming off on our test drive when me and Tom were driving around. Actually went to go do a big burnout and it just started cutting out, and it must have just been on the verge of wiggling off. I was driving it around yesterday and I barely made it to where I was going. I went to go do a little pull and I think it finally came off because it just shut off. Luckily, simple, easy. I think I just have to tweak that harness around there. So other than that, not too many issues with the first gen. Everything seems to be driving well. We do have one fluid leak coming from the back here, which I think is an easy fix. This Ultimate 80 diff cover that is on here, I'm not sure about the fluid level. I think that it might be just too high, because if you look at the fill plug, it's quite a bit higher than the normal average middle of the pumpkin kind of fill plug. So I think it might be overfilled to the point where it's kind of just overwhelming that front seal. So I think we're just gonna get another MagTech cover, redo that service, and probably change that front pinion seal out anyway. But besides that, dry pressure gauge is still working. Everything is good. I know we still don't have engine cooling fans on this truck yet, but yesterday was still pretty decent. It was about 65, 70 degrees yesterday. Another very, very nice day. It did not even get halfway to overheating. Like, as long as this thing is moving, that Mishimoto radiator in the front is doing well. It's not even close to overheating. Now, we were moving, there was no traffic, things like that, but I'm not too worried about it. We gotta pull that all apart to do the P-pump swap, so I already have the fans. It's just, we're gonna do that when that all comes back apart. Anyway, enough about the first gen. Today is all about the 05. We have a couple hours here before Friday night dinner plans. We are gonna try and get as much done as we can. I got the table of goodies laid out for you guys. You guys know that we have the front shocks. We're gonna go ahead and throw them in first. And then we got our complete second gen swap. What is that? Holy crap, it's an air filter. Greg actually is gonna run an air filter. Yes, we do have an air filter. So this is the Fleece Performance second gen swap. Feed and drain lines. We have our Steed Speed manifold in the back. Got our Fleece 468 turbo, and we did get our coolant pipe back from Powder Coat yesterday. I did not go gold like everybody was somewhat guessing. I didn't want to overwhelm the engine bay with that gold color, really just an accenting color to the black. So decided to go black, keep it a little bit more sleek. We're gonna have plenty of gold with the turbo and the S400 outlet right here, so didn't want to overdo it. But anyway, that's the gist, that's the plan of today. Just going over some specifics here, some things that I use that don't come in this kit, things like that. Obviously, I've mentioned this before with the Steed Speed stuff, the nice MLS gaskets on the Turbo 2 manifold and exhaust manifold gaskets. What we do not have in the kit is these exhaust manifold studs, which are from our man Mikey G. He gets these for me. I believe he sells these. These are like cheap. I think he gives them to you if you buy Steed Speed. But that is step one. Before installing the exhaust manifold, you can kind of see I've got them pretty much except for one cylinder to show you guys. So I install these exhaust manifold studs. Much easier to get the manifold on and off rather than using the conventional bolts. So cheap, easy, nice touch. I usually do put something on the threads, that way they come out. Never had any problems with that. Then we'll go ahead and get our studs, put in our Steed Speed, and then we can pretty much bolt on the manifold. After that, we will then separate the exhaust housing from the rest of this, kind of like how we did on the first gen. Get the backside, the turbine housing put on, and that is the next couple steps. So we've pulled the exhaust housing back off the truck. I want to show you one quick thing that you might possibly run into on certain size housings. I believe this is a little bit more prominent than others, but the flange nut and the clearance to bolt this to your manifold, sometimes you can kind of see how they have the cutout here on the actual housing. Well, sometimes what happens is this flange part of this nut is just kind of too big, and it won't allow, if the stud is sitting a little bit closer to the housing side, you won't be able to get that on all the way. You'll be able to get it on right here, but then once it goes to tighten, you can kind of see right there where you might have some clearance issues. So what I've done is just ground off some of that flange off of the nut. That way when it sits down on there, it can kind of get real super close to that. So you might have to do that, you might not. Just figured I would mention that. That way if you run into something, if you're doing a second gen swap, it's not typically abnormal. It's just some of the housings, you know, you have a little bit more tighter clearances than others. Got the exhaust housing all set. That's all tight. Going to be moving on to our center section here. We do already have our oil feed fitting in the center section, and going to be putting in our drain piece here ahead of time. Fleece utilizes a nice O-ring. There's no gasket needed. This O-ring pretty much seals up your drain, which is super, super nice. You don't have to worry about any gaskets. And then what we're going to do is we're going to tighten that up on here and then put it into the block after we have our center section on here. That's the way I kind of like to do it. We'll get everything tightened up, and this turbo will be on here in no time, guys. Turbo is now installed. Everything is good, done. I did leave this V-band clamp just a little loose so we can clock this when we get the intercooler pipe in there, but the turbo is now completely done. Manifold's tight, turbo to manifold's tight. The oil feed and the drain are done. Just give you a quick little look on how everything lies here on this. It's where it connects down there to that metric. That port is metric. I did actually leave this, I believe this loose. I'm going to hook up an oil pressure gauge when we first started off to this 1/8 inch NPT port right on top of the oil filter housing. Make sure we got good oil pressure, but everything is done on the turbo. We're going to get the downpipe installed. Bunch of Fords out there. Anyway, the oil drain is done. That's tight. Just give you a little peek down here. We do still have to mess with the drive pressure and EGT sensor wires right there. Longer wires that are bare kind of right there, those are actually for the second boost sensor that we will not be using. Probably just have to coil them up out of the way. They're kind of routed like this down low across the top of the trans because our manifold last year was flipped upside down. So the drilled and tap ports were actually on the bottom side here, which is kind of nice. You can kind of hide them. This year, seeing that we're running a more conventional style, that stuff is actually up top. So hopefully we don't have to do too much messing around with that, but we do still have to get our sensors and ports and drive pressure coil. That all has to go on the top here. So still have to mess around with that. What we started to do now was actually switch to putting the front shocks in and the fleece delete plates. That stuff is over here. What I ran into, these are our new shocks. They're a little bit different setup. They're about 1.5 inches or so shorter. You can kind of see when I line them up, kind of see the bottom here to the bottom here. It's about 1 inch or so, but what happened is this is your bottom shock bolt. This is the way these shocks come, just with a rubber bushing. And these shocks are kind of like a universal fit. They're not really like vehicle specific, but you can kind of see there's no steel insert in here. It's kind of loose. What we ended up having to do, these are our previous shocks, has a metal sleeve, a nice bigger bushing. Those fit perfect. So what we're gonna have to do is swap this plastic and metal insert into this shock, kind of like how I did here. Now our new shocks have the same bottom insert as previous, so that was kind of nice. Our man Mikey G, if you guys need any of this stuff, he got us these previous shocks from last year and these inserts. These inserts for this are a different part number. I think he has all that stuff, but if you guys need anything, we're going to be using the fleece shock tower delete plates back here like I mentioned, which with this truck being lowered and also using delete plates needs a pretty short shock. So last year, the ones that they recommend for this are even still too long. So got a shorter shock here. So let's get these guys installed. Shocks can now get checked off the list. They are completely done. I did see a couple questions about the wheel wells. I don't even know if I might have already answered this. It was a question a little while ago, but we are going to be putting the wheel wells back in. I do want to fire it up without them in it. It's just a little bit easier to double check drains, feeds, connections, make sure you don't have any leaks. But shocks are definitely checked off the list. They look good. Alrighty guys, like I said, unfortunately we didn't have a ton of time, but just a couple more things knocked off. We're gonna be here all day tomorrow, getting this thing done, getting it wrapped up. Getting this thing mostly, I would say tomorrow. We're not gonna go to Bob's, we're gonna stay here. We're gonna spend one Saturday here. I don't think I really have anything else planned. We're gonna get this thing like 99% done. Still waiting on those tuning changes, but I think tomorrow we are going to at least start this thing with the old tune-up in it. I think it should start. We're not gonna leave it running. We're probably not gonna break it in, but we are hopefully gonna make sure everything is connected, communications are good, and that this thing will fire up. So then when the retune does come in, but tomorrow. We got a lot of stuff to situate with the exhaust. I really wasn't happy. You can kind of see last year, this was kind of like, yeah, this was not very legitimate last year. So we are gonna make sure we have a pretty solid exhaust system this year with the fleece downpipe. We're gonna basically make one long run, nice straight, new hangers, everything nice clamped, because last year was not up to par. So we're gonna make sure we're up to par. And yeah, that's it. We're gonna ride home. Of course, we're taking the first gen. It's so nice outside. I think it's over 80 right now, so I'm pumped. I just love the first gen. So we're gonna rip home in that. Another successful ride home in the first gen. Man. Slowly, actually fastly becoming my favorite truck. Hello? You're upstairs? Hello. Hi. How you doing? Good. What you doing? Working. What? Hashtag always working. Alright guys, I gotta get ready for dinner. I will see you guys tomorrow. Hit the like button before you leave. Subscribe if you have not already. I'll see you tomorrow. See ya.